Hello, I'm System Engineer John Meglin at Tech Data Corporation. Today we're going to cover Azure Site-to-Site VPN gateways, connecting your on-premise environment to Azure. These are the steps that we're going to cover in this video. This is the reference architecture we're going to use for our training today, and a link so you can plan your own environment. Let's jump right in and start creating an Azure virtual network. Go to the networking tab. We'll go in there's virtual network. We're going to look down here. We have the Resource Manager Classic. We're using Resource Manager. Hit Create. First thing we need to do is give our virtual network a name. It can be anything that you want. It's not specific, it's just what we're using here. Then we want an address space for our virtual network. Again, you can use whatever address space you want. I happen to be working off a specific one that we're working with in this lab. We can give a subnet name if we want, also a subnet address range. So this is going to be our actual subnet that our virtual machines are going to be on in Azure. We want to make sure we're using the correct subscription. And then if we have a resource group created already, we want to go ahead and work off of that. If not, we could create a new one right from that menu. And we want to make sure it's in the location. In my case, it's the East US. We're going to pin it to the dashboard. We're going to go ahead and hit create. And now our virtual network is validated and deployment has been started. You can see it showing up on our dashboard. And in a few seconds, we will get our virtual network created. And we'll look at the roll-up screen for that virtual network. And let's take a look at the subnets. You can see the default subnet we created is there. We're going to go ahead and create a gateway subnet for this network, which is required for the site-to-site connection we're going to do. The gateway subnet needs to be different, but within the address range of the initial subnet that we created. Now we have our gateway IP address. Take a look at some properties for that. Next, we'll look at creating our DNS servers for this project. We want to do custom. And again, you want to have a DNS server for your on-site domain as well as a DNS server in Azure. With that, we've created a virtual network and we've established some DNS servers. It's saving our virtual network and updating our DNS entries. And that concludes the steps for part one. Let's move on to the second step, creating our virtual network gateway in Azure. We'll go into the networking section. There's virtual network gateway. We want to select that. We're going to get some choices we need to make here. The first one is to name the virtual network gateway. Again, you can use whatever name you'd like. This is what we're using for this lab. Two choices here. We're going to use VPN, route-based or policy-based. Route-based is a dynamic piece. Take a look at the text there. We can go standard, basic, or high performance. For this lab, we're just going to use standard performance in the gateway. We're going to pick a virtual network we've already created. We're going to give it a public IP address. I'm going to go ahead and create one. Default name we're going to go with here. We're going to hit OK. Actually, looks like I already had that name in there, so it has to be a unique name. So we're going to go ahead and change that, add a little 2 on the end here. Hit OK again. We're good to go. Take a look at our subscription, make sure we're creating against the right subscription. We're going to go ahead and pin that to the dashboard. Scroll down and take a look at some of our others. Again, we want that in the East US for this lab. We're going to hit create. You can see in the portal, it's creating the virtual network gateway. Now we're going to move on to establishing our local network gateway, step 3. We're in the networking tab, see local network gateway. We're going to go ahead and pick that. Again, like most things, we're going to have to give it a name. And what we're doing here is we're establishing an IP address for our VPN device and then an address space for our local on-premise network. Again, this is just what I'm using for here. You would want to make sure and find the IP address of your actual device and then use your specific settings for your local address space. You can have multiple address spaces. In this example, we're just going to have one. Move down, make sure we're in the right subscription that we want to create it against. Again, as always, we have our resource group we created. Initially, we're going to go ahead and pick that, or we could create a new one if we hadn't done that already. And again, we're going to validate that we're in the right area. East US, it should take care of it with the resource group. And then we're going to hit create. And voila, you can see it's deploying. We pinned it to our dashboard. For step 4, I'm going to leave that up to you. It is different for every specific device. I provided the link so you can look at your device. At this point, we've done all our necessary steps. Now we're going to look at creating the connection for the VPN site-to-site gateway. So we go to connections. We're going to go ahead and add a connection. We're going to give that connection a name. We're going to take a look at the different connection types. In our case, we want a site-to-site IPsec connection. There's our virtual network gateway we created earlier. We're going to go and choose our local network gateway that we created earlier also. And provide that shared key that we need to have in both our VPN device and in Azure. Our resource group is the one we've been working off of the whole time. Going to create that. Now we look at the config real quick, and you can see it's updating the configuration. Now we've got our connection created. Let's go and look at some of the settings for this connection. We're going to go hit our virtual network gateway we created. We're going to go down to our connections tab. And we can see the status. We're now connected. We have our site-to-site up and running. If we click into that connection, take another look at that, we can see our settings for this. Notice our virtual network gateway and our local network gateway. Take a look at the activity log, just so we can see what happened when we created the connection. Go ahead and run a quick report for the last 24 hours. Get those results. We can see that we're doing good. Let's look at the properties again, just to show we're connected. The provisioning state succeeded. We get some data coming in and out. And we'll look at the resource health itself. And as we see, Azure tells us ours is available and the VPN connection is running normally, which is what we want. So now let's take a look at our machines. This is our domain controller in Azure, or actually our server in Azure. We can see we can ping the on-site server. Then we'll switch to the on-site server. And the same thing. We will ping the server that we have in Azure. And as you can see, after we do this ping here, that we are connected. So we have connectivity between Azure and our on-premise network, which is good.